I know. That was a lie.
If anyone could ever just see your side, they would laugh with me.
Well, you got to see what I'm doing over here.
Well, I'm.
Well, I need a finger to give to you.
Rude. Good morning.
A pointing finger.
I know, but that was funny the way you said it.
Yeah.
Ooh, there I am picking my nose on the screen. Not really. Good morning.
Try that. You get a few views that way.
Picking my nose
on TikTok. Yeah.
I don't think that would be like a trend. Now I'm going to start touching my nose. So good morning again. Exciting this morning.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
You were very excited.
I know.
I saw all the stuff over the weekend. It was great.
I know, right? So yeah. I'm in the beginning of a rebrand, so to speak, and then just changing some things around and really trying to get the message out there about lots of good health and wellness, living your best life, extensions of the podcast and getting to grow the podcast bigger because I love doing this, and you know that, and
yep.
And I love helping people, which you know that too, and getting the good messages out there. So right into it today. So over the weekend, I was at one of my favorite spots, and I just happened to go and prove to myself that, because I'd had that non-cardiac issue that I thought was a cardiac issue, right? Which was actually a gallbladder issue for all those years. I decided that, I'm going to go run, the Loon Mountain race on my own first before I actually run the race, which is a different story. But anyway, and so I started off really early in the morning because everybody else went off to do Mount Washington. And I thought that would be a bad idea to do all of Mount Washington the day before a race. Right?
Yes.
So they all did that, and I went and did my thing.
Wait a second. You did the Loon Mountain run the day before the Loon Mountain run?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is who I am as a person. I had to make sure I didn't have a cardiac issue and that it wasn't really that because I hadn't done a bigger mountain.
So collapse alone there instead of in the middle of a race.
I thought of that.
Smart.
With no medical, right? You know me. But I proved to myself that it was actually A-okay.
Yeah. But
here I was. It was a beautiful day. It ended up being a beautiful day. But when I went out in the morning really early to do this, when everybody else went off to do, the most dangerous mountain in the north, up here because it's not my mountain. It started raining like buckets. And it was the closer I got to the top of Upper Walking Boss, which is the 40+ degree angle of going up.
Wow.
It was thundering and started lightning.
Oh, God.
It was like 7:45 in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So I did that.
You think vet bills are high? How about a mountain rescue?
I know, well, exactly. But
sure.
I think they pay for it. I don't know. But I thought of all of these things thinking, oh my God. And there were other people out there doing a similar thing, but there was spatterings of people. And I kept thinking, I just have to get turned back around, finish this and get back down. But I was so excited because I didn't have the cardiac issue because it wasn't a cardiac issue.
So you must have felt a difference.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like I was a little billy goat. Right?
Yeah.
Seriously, because I kept waiting for this thing that kept happening in the last couple of years when I would do that race. I was like, is it coming? Is it coming? And it never came. And I was very excited. Now I have been doing smaller mountains, like I do ones around here that I have no issue on. But for whatever reason, that incline on that one. Yeah. So I hadn't been hiking the bigger mountains in the past year and a half, 2 years because I was afraid. And it was my gallbladder the whole time.
No, okay. Mount Washington next week.
Although John would love that. So, and Cameron went and did the whole Mount Washington his first time ever. Nice. And I was so proud of him. He did it. And unfortunately at the top, the weather rolled on in and he couldn't see the view. So I said, you're going to have to
go back. Yeah.
I said, you have to do it again. So he was a little disappointed in that, but I'm so proud of him because, that's a lot. And he was super good at it. So, John's saying, let's go now. Now, go Cam. He wants to go back up and John wants to do it. So anyway, so I was up there doing it. And in the meantime, I had made a video of me in the rain because I just, as a fluke, did the video and posted up to TikTok and so on. And I'm excited because I want everyone to come over and start following my rebrand of TikTok. And I'm doing a lot of shortened reels and versions of like dailies on that. And they're posting up on all my social media, but including with this. But
how do they find you on TikTok?
Dr. Kim Lannon. I can And that's what everything has been pushed over to now. I believe I want to make sure because I have a little person that loves me that's doing it. Yes, it's at Dr. Lannon. If you want to find me on TikTok, so you'll get my daily reels on that, and sometimes two. And then they also load up to my Instagram business page and my Facebook page, and all my businessy pages. Occasionally, you'll see some personal cat stuff on that, but it's related to emotional support animals. And
is that what it looks like? No underscore, no anything?
It's no underscore, but yeah, you got it. That's my TikTok. And you'll see my couple videos from this weekend, and it's, hey, great platform. I mean, I've been watching it forever now. I just happened to fluke put it up there. So please follow, like, share, do all those things, and come see my reels. And thank you all for already joining and following me. So follow, and share. I love it. And today we're going to talk about something really interesting. So here is something that came up and it's been coming up a lot. And I think this is going to be my new career offshoot because you know how I would do integrative medical mental health, and then I do the nutrition. I'm certified in the mental health nutrition piece as well. So I'm floored by the immense amount of misinformation that unfortunately other medical providers and just practitioners in the health field provide around many things.
Okay.
As you know, because you get that information, and oftentimes I have unmisinformationed you.
Yes. Yeah.
and much to your surprise, I'm like, you come back and say, you were right, Kim. And
why are you surprised?
Well, because I don't get that a lot. I think I don't get it personally back, but it fixes people, and then they're like, "Oh yeah," but you always come back and say,
"Well, PCs aren't as in tune with a lot of and all the stuff is changing constantly."
Well, yeah. So general practitioners, and this is not to knock all people in the profession, but I see this a lot, and it's very frustrating for me about the misinformation that gets put out about lots of things, from addiction medications, and medical assisted treatment, and now into what I'm more involved in, which I've been involved in for a long time, but it's just switched over because now there's medication for it. So now there's medical assisted weight loss, and it's changed over the years. I mean, there's always been medical assisted weight loss for, not always, but many, many years, but it's changed over the years. And we know now that there's medications and things. So my surprise, not really, as I'm shaking my head, was yesterday I had a patient come in, and she's got a few issues going on, and right out of the gate, one of her issues that we were working on is her self-confidence, her self-esteem, and her lower self-esteem. Good morning, Faith. Because she has a weight issue that has been increasingly popped on, that we've been trying to medically figure out, is it a medical issue? Is it a thyroid issue? Is it a hormone issue? She's in her 20s. Is it a food issue? Is it a nutrition? Like, we've been trying to figure out, and without having to go into medical assisted treatment, right? Always go to natural first and try to do it the way that we can out of our body. We have not found anything, but we have a lot of doctors taking shots in the dark at, we've got, potentially a hormone issue, potentially a lymph node issue, potentially lymphedema, potentially all these things. And at the end of the day, we just haven't been able to medically really give it a solid thing. But here's the thing. She was referred to someone, not by me, but she was referred to another person by her primary care, to a nurse practitioner, which I'm all for because I think that's great. Nurse practitioners and PAs. However, this nurse practitioner, in doing my research, and also from the patient telling me, the nurse practitioner is on a medical assisted treatment and is doing a semaglutide, which is, Wegovy, Ozempic, and all those things. And she is doing it. And so you would think,
for weight loss.
Yep. And you would think that if you're doing medical practicing, you would think that you would have the correct information to give your patients when you're doing it, and not just because and I tell this to my students all the time, just because your experience is this doesn't mean that's clinically sound information.
Yeah.
So my upsetment yesterday, That's such a weird
Upset
word.
men. I
My
like
upset men.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a wing-ding of a word. My aggravation yesterday when she was telling me what was said was she said, the nurse practitioner told me that I shouldn't eat things from the ground. Hold. Look at your face. Look at your face. That I shouldn't eat things from the ground. Now I'm paraphrasing, but this was, I shouldn't eat things from the ground because
coins.
well, no.
No, plants and things like
Yes.
that. Yeah. Okay.
I shouldn't eat things from the ground because they're all, and I'm not, that's not a paraphrase word. All, like bold letters, all are carbohydrates. I almost fall off my chair.
Wow.
I think I swallowed hard. I probably had a very animated face. She's known me for a long time, at least 10 years. And I was like, And she's like, that's wrong, right? And I said, well, let's give the benefit of the doubt. And I had to explain more to me what this nurse practitioner was telling me, because I always try to say,
nail down the comment.
I really want to know, like, what is this person saying? Is this, is perception? How are you perceiving it? We all hear the same things, but then we perceive them the way we want to hear. But I sliced it, diced it, came around 15 different ways to Sunday, and it still came down to the fact that the nurse practitioner told her own personal story and said, she's on this Wegovy, which is like Ozempic. They're in the same. They're the semaglutide, not the tirzepatides, which are there's difference.
Yeah.
And which I'll talk about. And she was saying that if you eat anything that comes from the ground, essentially plants, they are not essentially good for you, and that it's basically all carbs. So I'm here today to tell you what I told her in short, but I'm going to do a longer version of this to educate a little correctly. First of all, I said to her, do you know what I had a little tongue in cheek. You know what the top 5 things are to avoid eating if you want to lose weight? And she waited and she waited and she waited and she waited. And I didn't say anything. And she said, you're not saying anything. I said, right. Because there is no top 5 things. There is no top 5 things.
Right.
People get into this whole thing about what are the top 5 things? What are the top 10 things that you shouldn't eat, that are bad?
People's metabolism is different. It's different for different people.
There's so many different factors. And the first answer is I went silent. Silence is because there is no top 5 list of what you shouldn't eat. There are things that you are going to have that are unhealthier than other choices. Yeah. There are things that are not going to go well with your body and your metabolism necessarily. And there's certainly things that are not great carbs, but plants and things coming from the ground. And I'm going to talk about meat too, because that's a different thing, but she didn't say anything about meat. She was talking specifically about making sure that she didn't eat things from the ground.
I'm wondering what you're supposed to eat. Well, so you don't eat stuff from the ground.
But she was misinformed, because I asked her, I said, well, did she say that this was because, like, what vegetables, what things were coming from the ground? And my sense was, and this is, just the global sense after this conversation, was like, potatoes and carrots and things that were more
root vegetables,
which are higher in sugar. So now my patient didn't understand that there's a difference between different vegetables, and all vegetables on some level have, and I don't know if you know this, they all have, even celery has a carb content to it.
Yeah.
Right. They all do. And fruits, because there's sugar in them, but they're natural sugars, which your body digests better than processed sugars. That's why I do have a list of things I tell people, these are probably not things that you want to be eating if you're on a health lifestyle change, or if you're on a semaglutide or a GLP or SLP1, like tirzepatide, Mounjaro, any of those, because they do not help you. And some things that you eat mess up your digestion, and they play with your slowness and your speediness of your digestion when you're eating. And then when you're on that medication, it doesn't help you. So the misinformation, and it wasn't because it was a quick appointment with this person. And I'm belaboring this is because this is not the one time I've heard this. This is numerous times over the past year or two that I've heard since people have really gotten on the bandwagon of doing these medications is, and you remember I did a show on this when it first sort of hit, and I was like, oh, this is going to be like an addiction treatment for food addiction. And yeah. But the misinformation is quite something. And it's not because people are Googling it. It's coming from people. Because if you Google, if you actually Dr. Google it, this is one area where I find that I am like, oh, I'm pretty satisfied with the information that's coming out about it and how it's helping. And it talks about how it also helps people's self-confidence and mental health issues and depression and anxiety and mood and elevation. So I'm like, yay, this is a good thing.
Well, Google's fine. You just have to contain the content, the context, and understand.
We have to understand all of those pieces that are coming from it. But you also have to understand that, if this is the same. So this is the same person who told my client when she goes, when you Google, she told my client this, when you Google this information on Wegovy and you Google anything about like all these things, it's just going to say it causes death. That's the first thing she told her. I'm like, oh my God. So that was out of the gate. And then we went down to don't eat plants because they all are carbohydrates and they're bad for you. So I had a long education session yesterday on the fact that there are certain plants and so plant meaning vegetables and fruits that are more sugar content, and therefore your body breaks them down differently than others.
Right.
And so therefore you have to be mindful of which ones are going to be more in your favor. And that doesn't mean you couldn't and shouldn't eat them. It means that you just have to be mindful of what you're eating and don't be uneducated about what you're eating. Now that also brings in, if you're on these medications, the doctors who prescribe them do not recommend, and this is not a top 5 list, but they do not recommend that you eat anything that's refined sugar, refined wheat, pasta, bread, and anything that's processed.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
So there's a top 5 list, but it's not about don't eat it ever. It's about be mindful that these are things that are not going to be helpful in your daily life. And I'm going to come back around of why that's important, because those things in daily life without medication are not your friend anyway,
right?
Because they're just not. And if you go back to my show a couple months ago on all the chemicals that get put into our foods, and then we eat them, if you're not on anything and you're trying to be healthy, not even this isn't about losing weight, this is just being healthy, then we're not supposed to be eating those things. We're not made to eat those things. Now, when it comes
if it has an ingredients list, be wary of it.
Right. And and when you're on these medically assisted treatments for anything related to weight loss or diabetes, because that's what these medications were originally for, when you're on these, you have to be mindful that whatever you're doing when you're on them, because they're instant gratification for people, and that's what makes it wonderful for lots of people, because it really feeds that mental emotional state when you're on them. If you do not do the work, and I have 13 people in my practice now on them, and we are, yes, it's pretty significant. So I'm on my 13th person in my practice on them, and that didn't come with like a fast, like they didn't come to me on them already. These are people that have gone through and done other work, and we've gone to, okay, we're going to work on this. They've all committed to contract essentially with me that they will stay the lifestyle change course. And therefore, when they hit their actual weight loss goal, they will maintain it up to a certain point. And then we will wean off of the medication, because once you wean off of it, you have to be able to maintain the weight that you're at.
Right.
And most people that are on it and come off of it that I'm watching on all the social media, if you watch social media and you watch and I've been watching TikTok, of course, and Instagram, there's posters up all the time talking about all this stuff that they eat, this amazing food and all these calories. It's not true. It's not true. And some of my clients will say, did you see this person? I'm following this person. Did you see this thing that they made that you can eat? And I'm like, you can eat that. However, that has to be in moderation, and it's loaded with processed stuff. It's loaded with added sugars that are not good for you, or it's loaded with artificial sweeteners, or it's loaded with those carbs that are not your complex carb that breaks down in your body and gives you fuel and uses it for you. If you don't understand the concepts of how to really live your life in a lifestyle change that's going to give you the weight drop, stay, and maintenance, then as soon as you come off of these drugs, or if you never come off of them, then that's one thing. But if you come off, you're going to, then it becomes a diet, right? It's a diet.
Yep.
You then pop all the weight back on and then some and then more, because you're not doing any of the work.
Right.
And people will say, oh, you got it. And I've said this a million times, it's what you eat. It's what you eat. It's what you eat. Yes. Your health in your body is really about what you eat. Exercise is the perk to it. You have to find something you enjoy, and I'll talk about exercise after. That's a perk. You can do exercise all you want, and people will go to the gym. This is my patient yesterday. She goes to the gym all the time, but she wasn't pulling the weight off. Why? Because she's eating at the wrong times, the wrong things, in excessive portions. Like we've whittled down the wheel of where she needs to maintenance it. So now, adding in the MAT of the Wegovy, Ozempic, and so on and so forth, that's going to help her do the things that we've put in motion as we moderate the rest of her plan. But going back to the misinformation that's out there, first of all, certainly any medication you could take could kill you. I mean, certainly, right? Aspirin can kill you, right? This is not like, it's from the basics all the way up to the most extremes. But if you go to Google, it's going to tell you everything results in death.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's really a good way to start off someone like on their medication, telling them that, well, if you look at this, it's going to kill you. Although all of the ads on TV will tell you that.
Yep.
But I think that clinically, if you're looking for good, solid lifestyle commitment to change and mental health and getting yourself in a high energy, good motivation, good dopamine, pleasure center reward, really strong serotonin mood regulator, really good anxiety manager under your GABA neurotransmitters that keep you really calm or keep you at your best, your best level of anxiety and stress management so that you can metabolize your food correctly, you really have to be looking at correctly what you're eating. And if you get information that plants and things from the ground to eat are bad for you, that is not true. That is just not true at all. Eating rice-a-roni out of a box or eating, processed anything, that's not going to help you. And that's just not. And one of the things, and jumping to another person that I know that's on it, one of the things that their family member consistently has told them, I don't know if they're still telling them that, but it's, you're on the shot, you can eat anything you want. That is not true.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
This is not true either. I mean, there is the bottom line to even being on these shots, which are really healthy for a lot of people, even if they don't have diabetes, because for a variety of reasons that I can get into. We know there's downsides to the shots, but there's some really good upsides, which I was really on the fence about clinically for a long time, of trying to figure out, like, how's this helping? What's this going to do? But I've got 13 people invested in doing the right thing, right thing by the plan. They're not doing it. They're not winging it and doing it just for instant gratification. They're really doing the work. But that one other person I know, like, it's this constant, like, you can eat anything you want. And every time they've done that, and I know they've done that, which they have tested it out, they get sick because there's a warning on it. Like, if you eat fried food, trans fat, hydrogenated oils, if you eat French fries, if you eat brownies and cakes and pastries and all those things, monster cookies, going to that cupcake factory place, going and doing all those, like, you're going to get sick. And lo and behold, guess what happens? You get sick. Because you can bypass, just like you can, and I've talked about this like last week or the week before, you can bypass a sleeve, you can bypass, having all those surgeries, the bariatric surgery, you can retrain your brain. But what's happening is, if you do it the correct, healthy way, you're rewiring your brain from what you've trained it to be a set point, which is way heavier in terms of weight and also portions and lack of exercise and all the things. You've trained it into that new set point when your body doesn't have that set point. Your body by nature will have its own natural set point. But when you do all that extra stuff, you're just making it worse. So I was concerned, and so was my patient who had the smarts about her to ask me, like, so I'm not supposed to eat plants? Because everything I've been telling her is good mix of good proteins, like chicken, fish, turkey, red meat, lean meats, pork, things like that. If you're a meat eater, with good things from the ground, and that's anything from the ground. You can, you just have to be knowledgeable of, like, if you eat carrots, that's a higher sugar contented vegetable than cucumbers. Cucumbers do have a small content of carbs in them, but because they have, not because they're more water based, but because they do have a lighter fibrous makeup, they're going to be able to metabolize easier, and they have a lighter amount of carb in them.
Potatoes are different than peppers.
Yeah, and so peppers are one of your, here goes the top 15 list, right? Peppers, by the way, I'm not a big fan of peppers, but green, yellow, and red peppers are one of the highest greatest vegetables in terms of, like, the things that are beneficial for you in terms of minerals and nutrients and your carb content and your ability to have fiber and all those things. And I just don't like the taste and the texture of them, but I'll eat them. But,
if you don't cook all of that out of them.
Right. Well, yeah. And you right. So raw is great, and steaming, fine. But if you, like, mutilate them and whatever, you lose a lot of that. But steaming them is fine. But one of the girls' favorite vegetables was broccoli and cauliflower. And this nurse practitioner told her she couldn't eat them because they were too high in carbohydrates. And I said, well, what was the replacement? And she told her that it would be better for her to have a protein bar. Yeah. And if you could see my face, if you're watching, I cringed. I was like, no, because now we have to read the label,
processed food,
and we have to see what's in. And I'm not saying no to protein bars, but that's not a replacement for broccoli. No. Or cauliflower, and people, God, there's so many things here, misinformation about, like, if you have almonds versus oats, almonds and almond milk and almond products are going to be more cleansing, essentially, or coconut is more cleansing of the body. Oats are very hearty, and they're more of like a bloater. They're really good for you, but they will fulfill you, and they will also potentially slow your digestion down a little bit, which will go against some of your Wegovy and your Ozempic stuff, because they get in the way if you eat too much of it.
Yep.
People will put in, like, trail mix, the stuff that they get the mix of, and put it in their yogurt. You've got to really know if it's coming from the Quaker Oat overnight box that has nothing added in it versus the one that's pre-mixed that has all the sugars added into it, because you don't know what's in that package, and you're putting it on, and now you're eating that, and that's harder for your body to process. So it's really about educating yourself. But people are so much into the instant gratification of just, I'll take the shot and then I'll lose all the weight. And people tell me this all the time. They'll be like, I want to go on the shot and I want to lose all the weight, and I want you to support me and give me all the things, and then I'll come off of it and I'll be okay. And then I say, well, these are the things we have to do when you do that. And you can see the face change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
because they think they're bypassing all that.
Well, they think they're bypassing it, and they're also not getting the same information from their primary.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy. I'm getting more and more people that are going to, like, the weight loss clinics that have clinicians that are certified, or they're medical doctors or whatever, that actually are focusing in on this, and they're taking the time. They're not doing the other things. They're saying, you can't eat.
I wanted to ask you about those because I'm
sucralose and ethyl-based sugars, sugar alcohols, things that are sweet and low, aspartame, anything that's got aspartame, equal, Truvia. Now there is debate on stevia. Stevia is, the natural plant. I grow it actually in my garden. Stevia by the Ozempic site and the Wegovy site says stevia is okay because it's just the natural. Now, a lot of the Medi weight loss places, and now I can't speak to all of them because I don't have one specific, but the ones I've worked with, and I'm working with some of the docs or the nurse practitioners that are working there, they're like, some are saying no to stevia and some are saying yes. But if you go to the actual website for those particular MATs for weight loss, they say stevia is okay. So that's going to be a matter of what you decide. I just think safer is better. And just eat, if you want like a teaspoon of sugar, it's better to eat regular sugar, real sugar from the raw, than eat something fake.
Or processed.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but stevia grows as a natural plant. So I actually grow that. I use that in my tea. I use that in my cooking. If you get it in the store, it gets ground up and granulated, looks like sugar. There's nothing added. It's just pure stevia. So, and the Ozempic site will say, if you go look it up, it'll say stevia is fine. But the other ones will not, because what happens is those actually change your digestion ability and doesn't allow the medications to work as great as they should. And so that also can mess with your physical health. And that's important to know, because people don't understand that you can't just willy-nilly eat anything. And that's why when people say you can eat anything you want on it, no, you actually can't do that, because it can give you a metabolism issue. It can hurt your gallbladder. It can hurt, not me anymore. So I won't have that worry if I, do that. It can hurt your pancreas. It can hurt your liver. It can give you headaches. Like, there's all kinds of things that come with it. And if you're a consumer who's in the quick fix, just do it, and you haven't read up on it, and you don't read up on it, and you don't really know any of the medications you're on and what they do, this is super important, because you really have to be in the lifestyle change mode. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Is this kind of mental state, cognitive state, has to come along with doing these medications, because they're changing your biochemistry that actually improves your mood and motivation to be able to do life. And without them on board, if you haven't done this work that I'm doing with those clients to get you into a space of lifestyle change, get on a habit and routine of, here's what I eat for breakfast, and here's the things I eat for lunch, and here's how I do this, and here are my portions, and here's my exercise plan, and here's my other things, and being out in nature. If you're not doing that, that medication's great for right now.
Hopefully it's providing.
And the downside is going to be, I'm foreseeing this influx of people coming to me in a year or two going, I gained all my weight back, and now I've got all these medical conditions, and now I've got this, and this, and I'm going to go, cringe. I would keep cutting you off, and I also wanted to go back and look.
Well, hopefully it's providing the momentum for you to make some of these lifestyle changes and mindset changes, because that's one of the great things about weight loss. Once you get started and you dig into it, you start to lose a little weight. You get excited about it. You build momentum, and you just get better, and you find more ways to get. I'm going to say game the system. I don't mean it that way, but you find more little ways to do better in what you're doing, because you're motivated to do it. That's hopefully what the process is.
And so that's where my process is with my patients, is that's supporting all these things to build better mindset around this, so that you can sustain it. It's about sustainability, so you don't have a lifestyle that causes you cardiac arrest early, or you end up with diabetes, and you end up, because I was much about like, people are going on this just to lose 10 pounds. Okay, if you've got 40, 50, 60, 70, hundreds of pounds to lose, and you still aren't diabetic, the research is showing that this is an actually good thing if you're doing the work with it. Oh, I keep hitting my mic. If you're doing the work with it, because it's the sustainability. But unfortunately, we are an instant gratification society, and that is the same thing as the whole food addiction issue. And so that's the other piece, is if we're not looking at from my other side of this, and this is where the nurse practitioner also told her she didn't need the counseling, because the medication would do it for her.
Wow.
And
wow.
Yes. I said, there's a reason why weight goes up, and it's not just genetics. It's lifestyle and modeling and social role modeling and emotional stuff. So if your environment has been, and we've talked about this many times here, if your environment has been role modeled that you are a eat for comfort family, love is food, you live by food, everything is, oh, you're sad, have an ice cream. Oh, you're happy, have a pizza.
Did good at school, get an ice cream.
Right. So it's wrapped in that. And that's a lot of people. Then your mindset is about, when things get hard, your coping strategy is to go to that or to restrict it. And that messes up your whole metabolism. And we don't have an anorexic epidemic. We have an obesity epidemic, and that comes from emotional eating, emotional trauma bonded eating. Trauma bonding mean like the emotions you create around your family members that have been either toxic or have given you messages around food that are really not healthy, or you have picked those up from other people around you just in general, but it usually happens in families. And people will blame, I can't help it, it's my genes. People need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Genes are only a part of this. Genes play a role, yes, and I can tell you that. However, at the end of the day, it's really your lifestyle is about nutrition that creates a mental biochemistry that keeps you in a healthy zone to regulate your body. The more you eat that's junky or processed or whatever, it changes your actual chemistry in your whole brain and your whole body of how your mood is. So they all connect, and people oftentimes still to this day, even though we have way more education out there and way more self-help books and all this stuff, people still do not connect that the mind and the body talk. So when you have something that you eat, it's immediately activating something in your body to make a change, good, bad, or indifferent. Whether it's an apple or an apple tart, whether it's spaghetti or spaghetti squash, it's changing your mood. It's changing your mental state. It's doing something to you. It's creating a mindset that creates you to crave more or not crave more, to have your body produce more hormone, not produce more hormone. It all connects together. And so when people say, well, you know, that's not really a mental health issue, and so it's a medical issue, you don't have to worry about it, to me, I'm like, no. I'm a holistic, which means whole person approach, which is the system. And we have to look at all of it, because you can't just take a medication. It's just like when people, let's take the ones we're talking about off the table, and let's talk about insulin. If you're an insulin dependent diabetic and you're in my practice, which I have people that, you know, are, they not all, but many over the years of me doing this, many people think that I can eat whatever I want because I'm on insulin.
Yeah.
There are no older people that are insulin dependent usually living a long life if they're doing that. That's not to say that they don't on healthy, but when you have people that are insulin dependent, or they're on things that are going towards that, and they're not trying to do the lifestyle with it, as you know and understand, right? That's not a long life coming, because the body is not able to process it. And what does it do? It changes your mood. It makes you feel depressed and anxious. And then that becomes my issue for my practice, is because now I can't just address depression or anxiety. I have to address why. Why are we coming into this space? Because the underlying things about what's going on in your life, or what has gone on in your life to create the moment you're in, have to be addressed. And I do have people that are just like, I don't need to talk about my family. I don't need to talk about it. I just want you to help me with weight loss.
But the same medical,
like, I can't help you with the weight loss unless we talk about all the stuff.
The same medical community that came up with a shot for weight loss is battling you on anxiety and depression. Take a pill. No, it doesn't work unless you
have to
attack the underlying cause.
Right. And that's why
it's all a dual diagnosis.
Exactly.
Anxiety and depression is a symptom. It's not the issue.
Right. And the anxiety and depression come from something that has happened, or some things that have accumulated over time that have not been dealt with in an appropriate, healthy way, which has led to this issue.
Weight loss needs are weight is a symptom. It's not the problem.
Weight is food weight is the addiction, right? Like I say with alcohol, people who are in alcoholism actively, that's not the problem. I know it's like people are going to go, what? If you haven't heard me before, that's the symptom of the problem. What underlies an ism? What underlies an addiction? Food addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, shopping, whatever it is. What underlies that? An emotional piece. If we don't work on the emotional piece and educate ourselves around how to actually get our coping strategies and skill build up, and then actually have knowledge around how to eat right, avoid triggers, know what makes us, whatever, put in any of those things I just put in. If we don't know how to fix, I say that loosely, fix, if we don't understand where it came from and how to monitor for it, we're going to be right back in it. That's why people relapse all the time in ism, right? People lose weight and pop it back on a year later.
And you know how you know it's emotional? If people are telling you you're going to die if you don't lose weight, you're going to die if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die if you don't stop taking drugs, and people don't stop, intellect would tell you, all right, I'll stop. But
Right.
the emotional component is keeping you going.
Well, the emotional component, and this is what people, so this is a thing about addiction, is that people will say, I don't understand how, a person can be totally sober from something, or they're doing great, and all of a sudden walk into the restaurant or walk into the bar, and then all of a sudden their brain is just like, I'm just going to do it. Because people who have the ism in them don't have that shut off in the same way that people that don't. So people who it comes to naturally, that's a totally different ball game. They're working on it differently in different ways. But when it comes to people with an ism, the brain just goes into a totally different space. And that's why family members have a hard time understanding, like, well, I can eat that and it's not a problem, or I can drink that and it's not a problem. Yeah, but your brain doesn't do biochemically, in terms of psychologically and psychiatrically, with all the biochemicals, it doesn't respond to the trauma that you have in the same way that they do. You get two people living in the same house, growing up the same way. One's an alcoholic and one isn't. One's obese, one's not. Why? Because they're processing their emotions of how they grew up in a different way. They're processing their trauma in a different way, of whatever that is, or they're processing their feelings of emotional attachment issues or avoidance, or whatever it's come to them.
They're dealing whatever they're dealing with,
right,
a different way.
And whatever they're dealing. So alcohol is a way of dealing with shit. Overeating is a way of dealing with shit. Gambling to excess, overeat, sex, right? Mm-hmm. All those things are ways of dealing with something that's gone on. And when it's to the excess and it becomes a functional issue for you, and it's creating a problem where you could die, the problem in the acute moment is the thing. But at the end of the day, how to stop that from continuing, you have to go back and look at what is creating that, and why do I do what I do so that I don't keep doing it. So the shot is great. The shots are great for helping people lose weight, helping people not have cardiac arrest, lowering blood pressure, cholesterol, all those things across the board, even if you don't have diabetes, which is why I'm not upset about people now using it for other things, right? Because it's if you want to lose 5 pounds, in my opinion, go for a run. If you need to lose 40, 50, 60 pounds and up, this isn't okay, but do it in the way is healthy and correct. And people just don't like to do that. I am not a popular opinion on that, I don't think, in a lot of ways, because it's hard for people to hear they have to do the work. People don't want to do the work.
Well, again, it all comes back to accepting the responsibility for their condition.
Right.
That means you have to, you can do the work, which means you should do the work, which means it's your problem.
Right. But
people want it to be an external problem. They don't want to take responsibility for it.
Right. Well, it's accountability and responsibility for having to do what they haven't done, and then looking at the fact that there's also a stigma thinking that there's somehow they're bad, or there's somehow, in some cases it's like they're not transparent. It's like they don't think that you can see that they're 270 pounds, but and I am, like many people who do weight loss and nutrition and psychological counseling, I'm very straightforward. There's no, like, we're not going to, literally, no pun intended, we're not going to sugarcoat that 270 pounds or 300 pounds is 300 pounds.
Yep.
And you're 5'2". That's a problem. That's not a problem because you are socially stigmatized. If you feel that way, that's your problem.
No, but the key point
your problem is that you have now a cardiac event coming, you have a diabetes event coming, you have a liver shutdown, a renal shutdown, an eyesight shutdown, you have ammonia building up in your body, you have toxins, I could just keep going. But doctors won't tell you that. And if they do, my experience has been that it's sugar-coated. Yeah. Because they don't want to hurt their patients' feelings, but you're doing a disservice. There's ways to tell people that I have a colleague that has he has no holds barred. He'll just look right at you. And if you don't do the work, like with me and how to do it, like the way he thinks it should be done, like I'm talking about, my bedside manner is very, I think, loving and kind. His is more, he'll look right at you and say, this is an epic fail. And he'll tell you, this is an epic fail. Because he'll say, this is the easiest thing. You have the perfect cheat here to help you do the work so that you can let the weight fall off of you while you're doing all the repair work so that you can keep it off. And when people are bypassing it and just eating and they're losing a pound here and there, and he's like, it's an epic fail. And I'm like, ugh. So in psychology, he's a medical doctor in a different way. So he says that, and I always cringe. He goes, what? And I'm like, I just wouldn't use the word fail.
Yeah.
Let's not keep damaging what we're already trying to fix, know?
He's doing his job.
He's doing his job in a different way. That's why, like, if you watch Dr. Now on My 600-Pound Life, right? He's very clear. He's just like that. He's like, you're wasting my time. And I have said that. I'm like, you're wasting our time doing this because you're not doing the work. That's, it's not often I have to say that because I don't like to use shame either. But I'll use good shame. But he uses it all the time. And I think a lot of doctors do that. But here's the thing is, I know that that doctor I was referencing that I work with, he educates. He's a very good educator. So he gives you all the tools, and then he gives you the people, like a resource like me. Dr. Now on TV, at least from what I've seen and what I've read about him, he gives you the tools and he gives you the education. And it's your choice at the end of the day. This doesn't come down to, you were told don't eat more than 700 calories or 1,200 calories, and you're eating 4,000.
Yeah.
The end of the day, it comes down to you still have to be in a calorie deficit, period.
Well, it's funny because I wanted to get into the weight loss programs because it feels like it's the next level for me because my journey on weight loss was calorie deficit. Mm-hmm. And then I started to figure out burning more calories is easy. It's pretty obvious. You can figure out how to burn more calories. Eating less calories is less easy, but then you find protein. Protein helps extend your time in between eating. You're more satisfied. You can use less calories.
Correct.
Over the course of time. Correct. And then I got into a little deeper and got into hacking my metabolism a little bit, but never got really good at that. The weight loss programs seem to personalize that and get that down. Well, so it seems like the next level of this work.
So that's the work I do when I work with people on their weight loss journey is that it's not a journey of weight loss. It's a lifestyle change of all those factors that you just talked about. People get into,
but they intimate that it's personalized, which I think is the next thing that people don't think.
And that's what I do is, hey, if you want to have a healthy lifestyle, that you're mentally stable, you're feeling good, you're getting resolved issues, plus you're getting your weight loss, I'm your person.
But I mean, a potato for me hits differently than a potato for you.
And so it's personalized to that person. It comes like the doctor I work with that we do together, we tag team on this. Like he sends me all the blood work. He sends me everything. He knows that obviously, because I do integrative medical stuff with mental health, I know how to read labs. I know how to read x-rays. I know how to do all that stuff. So he sends it, he gives it to me. He knows like the naturopathy stuff that I do. So he knows that I know how to make a plan for that person that will help them in the physicality, but then I have the mental health side where he doesn't. Yeah. So he and I do exactly like he and I know that we're giving the same message about the physical medical side, and then I'm picking up on the underbelly of the reasoning of why the person's doing the behaviors that they're doing, and he stays out of that because that's not his thing. I mean, he tells people like he knows enough, but he then leaves that to me, kind of thing. And then we build the plan, like. For some of my patients, I say no white potatoes. We do sweet potatoes. Yeah. Or we don't add in anything that has a heavier, starchier carb until we get some of the weight loss under control, because we go away from those things. Like I'll say, after someone's lost 50 pounds, I'll say, you can have like the cauliflower pasta because it's an easier burn than a starchy processed pasta if someone's really craving the pasta. But then I give them a list of, and he does too. I give them a list of, here's all the vegetables that are super good for you. Here's the types of meats you are going to be really healthy for you that will help your digestion, help your metabolism.
Do those differ from person to person?
They can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can. Some people process things very differently than others. Some people do not do well with shade. Nightshades, right? So tomatoes,
TB12,
right? So and you can get into the whole functional medicine thing like that I'm into about like are you allergic and all those things. It gets a little costly to do all the testing. Some people think it's a load of crap, but it's not. It just depends. Some people are allergic. So, you just know most people know, like when they don't feel good on something, like some people say, I can't eat tomatoes, but I can eat tomato sauce. I can, things like that. But there's very specific things. But there is a set of things that really people can eat as a general rule across the board.
Yeah.
You've got your green leafies and your cruciferous kind of things like broccoli, asparagus, cauliflower, spinach, kale, avocados, which is also a fruit. Great, for fiber and also fat, and good source of a little bit of carb, but healthy carbs, not starchy carbs. You want a starchy carb, you're going to go to carrots, you're going to go to your tubers, things that are like radishes and things that have more of a sugar content that's more concentrated. But your body likes that because your body needs that. And then you add in a protein, and you need the protein because the protein helps you stay away from cravings. People ask me all the time, I have a craving at 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, that's because you haven't had enough protein today. You didn't start your day off with protein. So it's very, it's very personalized in terms of how I do this with people, especially if doing the MAT, the medical assisted treatment for it. People, eggs are really good, high source of protein, lean dairy, not like high fat processed dairy. But you have to also be careful when you're on the shot if you eat eggs, because they can slow down your digestion, which works against your Wegovy or your Ozempic. So you have to be mindful of that because they're good protein. Some people really enjoy their red meat. Some people really enjoy chicken. So it's a matter of like, what are you getting that's lean and not eating, high fat content pieces of meat.
So is it
leaner meat.
Is it okay the way I did it, where you don't have to have this all at once? You start with a calorie deficit and then learn how to get better at that? And
when people go on, so when people, we're staying on that whole GLP thing today and the SLPs, just start with just cutting back into calorie deficit, because when you're on the shot, you won't have a choice, because it makes you do that, because
but that's fine. And you get results.
It cuts the chatter down in your head of wanting all the things.
Right.
So it's basically, you are in a calorie deficit because your body won't allow you to, because it's getting reset in the brain from the medication. So you'll be in that. But if you're doing it without the medication, calorie deficit is always where you start. But use protein as your source of. People will not do that. They'll go to, I say, as people walk out of my office, I said this 3 times yesterday. I said, remember, everything you pick up counts. That's including one chip, a handful of cookies, like everything counts. And people, anything that ends in Y for a day, they can cheat.
Well, for me, with the phone apps, actually recording your calories, recording and accountability makes a huge difference.
Yes.
So that you are counting every chip.
So you're right. And people don't like to do that because it's effort. It's amazing to me.
Plus, they don't like the results.
Well, they don't like the results because they don't like to have to take the accountability for looking at it. But it's such a vicious cycle for people, because I want what I want when I want it, but I don't want to do the work that goes into getting the best results I can. So, and that's why people really struggle when they're not using a shot. They really struggle with I'll call it the natural weight loss, right? Is that they don't want a calorie deficit. They don't want to count their calories, because a lot of nutritionists and people say don't count calories because it gets you into this mindset. But you also should be able to know roughly, like, I don't have to count calories. I can know, I just know from growing up.
Right. I
know how much a medium potato, a white potato, is in terms of calories. I know how much a pat of butter is, whipped or solid. I know how much 2 ounces of because this is my mindset. Most people think like they can eat a bowl of pasta, for instance, like a bowl of pasta, and think that's probably only like what, 200-300 calories. A bowl of pasta, roughly a bowl of pasta, like to take your typical Olive Garden, endless bowl of pasta. Your first bowl is about 1,100 calories.
It gives you nothing.
And it gives you nothing. Yep. Nothing. It's a waste.
You're eating 2 hours later.
And you're either sick or bloated or throwing up. And not to say it's not wonderful and yummy. Yep. But and people think that, that's the other thing. They're going to miss out. Oh my God, I can't have all these things. Yes, you can. I say to people, if you want to have that cupcake, you can absolutely have it. The next choice after it, what are you going to have?
Well, that's the one worst way, isn't it? Just denial. That's the one worst way to go about this.
Denial's a lovely place for people.
No, I mean in terms of just denying yourself foods, denying yourself calories, dieting. That's the one worst way to go about it.
That's why I said at the beginning, wait for it again. I'm going to say it one more time. Want to know the top 5 list of things you shouldn't eat and you should avoid to lose weight? Quiet, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no list, because it's moderation. It's about being realistic with yourself and being moderate. Okay, really quickly, I want to go. There's some questions here, and I didn't want to miss them. Okay, Bruce, a question about weight loss med. How can it make you have suicidal thoughts? Well, so I'm not sure which med you're specifically talking about in that question, but I can tell you what the suicidal thought thing that comes up with anything that changes your mood is. So when we take anything that has a mood regulator in it, for the most part, I'm saying this generically, it's not that it creates the suicidal thought per se, except with like Accutane. That's a different thing for acne. What happens is when we have a medication that changes your serotonin neurotransmitter, your mood regulator, your dopamine, your pleasure, your reward center, and your GABA, your anxiety news. If you were previously feeling down and depressed and low in mood because say you're overweight, say you were having health issues, say you had pain issues and you just weren't feeling good, and maybe you already had some thoughts of like, life isn't worth living, and people do, like that's, when you take medications in general that make you feel good and lift your mood, lift your serotonin, lift your GABA, lift all those things, and then make you feel good, and then you lose weight, or in this case, you lose weight and your mood goes up and you have more energy and all those things. If you previously were a suicidal ideation kind of person and you had those thoughts fleeting here and there, you are then more prone and more high risk to develop the want and desire to then do those things, because now you have the energy to put it into practice in place, and you could be more likely to do something on it and act on it. So it's a little misleading in some of the commercials when it says it could give you suicidal thoughts. It's not that all of a sudden it pops in and you have a suicidal thought. It's more about if you already had them in your past. Like people say you have someone who's 600 pounds and they've had tons of issues and they felt like it would be better off to be dead. They're likely the person that's had thoughts of how to do that. When they actually lose weight or they feel better and they get better, they're more likely just in general to then be able to act on it. Doesn't mean they will.
It augments existing suicidal thoughts.
Yes. So so people who have suicidal plans are more likely to have a problem. So back in the day, my supervisor, God rest his soul, when I was first starting out almost 30 years ago, said to me, he goes, this will sound terrible. And I teach this to my students too. He goes, we always want people to be feeling not as great as they should, at least for a while we're working on getting them to feel good about themselves. Because when they've had suicidal thoughts, when they've been down, we know that they're at least safe in that moment because they don't have the motivation to actually act on it. When they start feeling better is when we have to worry.
Interesting. So
it's always stuck with me, and it has really rung true, is that you see it because people are more likely to put it into action. Now, in terms of creating a thought, I can only speak anecdotally to Bruce's question. When people have been on medications that they've been on and then they haven't had suicidal thoughts prior, and they've just been either depressed, not just, but they've been depressed or anxious or both, or they've had, a really long run of major depressive disorder or something like that, or psychosis. When they take a medication, it makes them feel better. I have not had any personal clients, knock on wood, that have ever then generated now a new thought. We've always known that they've either had it, it's been there, and now it's there, and we just check in on it all the time because we want to make sure it's not creating anything. So I can't speak to having that issue come up. Now, do I know that it does? Yes, I know that it has. I've seen other colleagues go through it. I know in the research, I know in anecdotal stories and case studies, it certainly happens, which is where that information comes from. In terms of the weight loss medications having that happen, I don't have any anecdotal evidence for that having been a problem at this juncture. I do know that it has the same reference point as if you took like an SSRI, like Zoloft, Prozac, Lyrica, Wellbutrin, it could happen the same way potentially. And that's what I believe that they're talking about. I don't quote me on that, but that's what my guess would be clinically. My best clinical judgment would say that is what it is. Faith kind of reminds me of Fen-Phen, trend A pill instead of lifestyle change for weight loss. Yes. So Fen-Phen is no longer... Fen-Phen was an amphetamine. Yeah. So Fen-Phen is a very different drug. It is a stimulant. It's banned. You can't get it. Well, I think you can, but it's on the black market. But Fen-Phen was a thing that you could lose weight really quickly, had really tremendous, terrible side effects for people, cardiac arrest, people, sort of underground still take it when they're in the process of trying to, build, do like bodybuilding and things like that. I know it's still, there's, yep. things out there like that, but it's off the shelf now for normal everyday use or people. And that's a long time ago. But people were using it. It worked really great. But the problem was the same thing as what we have now, because if you didn't do the lifestyle change with it, but that was also, it sped up your heart. It gave you high blood pressure, it gave you cardiac arrest, and gave you anxiety and all kinds of other things because it's a stimulant. Going down to Bruce's Wegovy side effects, I'm going to go with that's a question that he's asking.
He was enhancing his previous question. That's where you got the question from, and that's probably listed on the commercial as Wegovy side effects.
Yeah. So so here's the other thing about those. All medications, when they come out, when they do their number of how many people they put in their study, they have to report every single side effect, every single one. That's why when you hear at the end of a commercial, this list that sounds like the fast talker in the world is doing them all, because they have to, by law, report them in writing and also on those things. And they pick the ones that are pretty significant, even if there's only one case. So usually what we know in these cases for that particular side effect, like the suicidal stuff, and I don't know what the statistic is on Wegovy or those right now. I could look it up and find out for you, but I know some of the SSRIs are like 0.01% of the N has had those suicidal things come up. So they have to report it in case it comes up for people, because it does. And it does. And certainly like Lexapro, and I've seen those on occasion happen. I just haven't had them in my specific practice. I've had other side effects happen, like people get really sick, gastrointestinal issues. With Wegovy specifically, the only side effects I've seen people have is when they eat something that they really shouldn't. It tells them, it speaks to them specifically. It gives you
that's a feature, not a bug.
That's right. It tells you, and it's a great feature because it tells you, I warn people, do not eat fried food. And what do people do? They test it out and then they come back and report, I shouldn't have had that. Right? I shouldn't have had that piece of cake. Why? Because cake has all the processed stuff in it.
Yep.
Right? I made a cake last weekend. It was all natural. And people that I know on it had it and there was no issue. Why? Because there was no junk and processed crap in it. So anyway, okay. So educate. If you do not have a provider that is educating you, find someone in your community that can educate you and work with you on your weight loss journey. It's a lifestyle change. It's not a quick fix. It's not instant gratification. Make sure you know that vegetables do have a little bit of carb in them, but they're not bad for you. Eating from the ground is not bad for you. Making sure you have good proteins, making sure you have good mental health. This all goes hand in hand. So if you want more tips or anything like that, you certainly can find them here, or you can find them also on my new upcoming different little reels that I'm doing for TikTok. So you can follow quicker and easier on little daily tips. So you can go to there and follow me, or on Instagram, the same thing. And you guys have a great week, and I will see you next week.